Now, from Washington, D.C., Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome to The World Over. We've got a special show for you tonight. Women and vocations are our focus tonight. The Catholic mom, columnist, and author of Stay Home, Stay Happy is here to talk about successful parenting, marriage, and the culture. Rachel Campos-Duffy returns to the program. And later we'll talk about why young women are coming to the religious life. Mother Dolores Marie of the Poor Clares of Perpetual Adoration, Mother Angelica's order, will be here. She's building a new monastery in Charlotte, North Carolina. And finally, given the recent criticism of the Ryan budget by some bishops, we'll bring you an encore presentation of my recent interview with the chairman of the House Budget Committee, Congressman Paul Ryan. Now, if you have a comment or point of view, something you'd like to say, drop us an email at worldover@EWTN.com. Lots to get to tonight, so let's dive straight in. My first guest was a cast member of MTV's The Real World San Francisco in the mid-1990s. She's also been a frequent guest host of ABC's The View and is currently blogging for CatholicVote.org on parenting and the pop culture, all of which she'll touch on tonight. She's the mother of 6 and a wife. Her book, Stay Home, Stay Happy, is still available in paperback. We're pleased to have Rachel Campos-Duffy back on the program. Rachel, great to see you, my friend.
Great to see you.
Let's start. I want to do a round robin. We've got lots to talk about. Starting with Sandra Fluck, the woman that really started. She was the prime mover in the war on women. She had a so-called congressional hearing on Capitol Hill, which really wasn't a congressional hearing, but it was billed as such. She's a Georgetown student. She was recently featured. Just last week, Georgetown gave her a platform. The students invited her in. Here's what she said. The Georgetown student health insurance policy must change simply because, quote, most students don't realize that contraception coverage will not be on their insurance. We're used to having contraception readily available. You would say what to Miss Fluck?
Well, I would say something to the parents sending their kids to Georgetown. The fact that they gave her a platform is an indication that all of us as Catholics really need to examine what the word Catholic in front of the university name really means. I hear that and I just can't believe it. And in fact, I believe that during the last, before this comment, but during the whole ordeal with Rush Limbaugh and everything else, the president of the university threw her a lifeline as well. So, I mean, she's being totally enabled there. And Catholic teaching is really being thrown under the bus. I would say there's more of a war on the Vatican right now than there is on women. She
says, and she said, the reason, these are personal attacks, she says, and I draw strength from history. This wasn't about me as a person, Sandra Fluck says. It was about me as a symbol of something threatening, a woman speaking out publicly. What's your reaction?
I think what the conversation that we really should be having is what is feminism? What is empowering? I don't see anything empowering or, you know, in Sandra Fluck's position or in any of the things that are happening right now. I think that, you know, in your show today, you're going to be talking about an increase in vocations with women. I think that what we're seeing is that if this is what feminism is all about, no wonder a lot of us are really rejecting the name, the title, and whatever it supposedly stands for.
Yeah, well, you all have found a new feminism, and we'll talk about that, what that's all about. Now, campuses seem to be sex-obsessed these days. Just last week was Sex Week at a number of colleges and universities. And we're not talking about, you know, Poughkeepsie College. We're talking about Harvard, Yale, and they describe it, the New York Times describes Sex Week at Harvard, a student-run program of lectures, panel discussions, and blush-inducing conversations about all things sexual. Is this what we need to give students in a hypersexualized culture?
Absolutely not. You know, my parents were were suffering enough during my college years with Spring Break and MTV. It's really, this is like the new level. In fact, there were universities that have had pornography shown as part of the sex ed class. Again, these universities are being paid, the tuition's being paid for by parents, and I'm wondering as I read these stories, where are the parents? Because if my kid came home with this kind of information, or if this hit the news about the college my kid went to, you could be sure that I would not be writing a check for tuition for that kid.
Yeah, I can't even get into the details of this thing because it's a family show. But the takeaway is this, and this is Shayna Kim. She's a Harvard sophomore, no less. She says, this was all about us not feeling shame, to be comfortable with ourselves, knowing what we want, and the consent to give us what we want. I mean, I feel no shame. I feel shame for her.
I do too, and her parents. I'm going, who are these kids? But you know what I think is interesting is that the culture, the popular culture, the music culture, the television culture, the movies, they're all full of sex. Why do these kids, or why does the institution feel like they need to promote this as well? It's like, I don't understand what role.
I don't know why it's look, we both went to college not so long ago. Why do you need sex week? It's like sex year. What are you talking about?
True.
I mean, you know, what we need is and some students have founded it, there's a true love week that some countercultural students, Christian students have founded, and they're talking about abstinence, lasting relationships, marriage, permanent future. That should be the emphasis. That's the countercultural narrative now.
But how about math and philosophy and
literature?
Those
are old saws. Why do you want to teach kids those things, Rachel? You're limiting the educational opportunities for these kids. There's another piece I just came across in a blog, and it said, if you want your kid to party less, pay less for their college. And this study found that a group of college students least likely to report engaging in drinking, binge drinking, marijuana use, smoking, were those who contributed the most financially to their education. I guess
absolutely.
It makes sense.
It makes sense now, and it made sense 20 years ago when I was in college. I went to Arizona State. By far, the kids who treated Arizona State as a country club because mom and dad were funding it were the ones that were laying out by the pool and partying and drinking. And those of us whose parents could not afford to do so, I think got a lot more out of the experience. So I think that's true for everything with parenting, isn't it? And we do live in a culture right now where kids feel entitled.
Entitlement.
Parents feel guilty, and they are willing to, you know, dole it out in exchange for some guilt-free feelings, and we are seeing the results.
How do you balance that? You have 6 kids at home. You're living on a congressional salary. How do you balance that, wanting to give your children all the opportunities and the things they want, the things they see their peers in possession of, and yet wanting to shape them and make them realize that materialism is not the way to go, and getting everything you want is not necessarily the best thing for you as a person? Well,
I think, you know, our generation is really trying to reinvent the wheel. I think I look back at what my parents did and what so many other parents did in past generations, and hard work, earning, you know, you want a bike, then how about earning it with chores around the house? There have been, and you and I have actually talked about this, studies where children who are given chores whine less. I mean, they've actually proven this to be the case. So in all of that, it starts very young, but teaching kids that nothing is for free these days, and that hard work it needs to be paid off.
Does the study say anything about the kids who whine about the chores? Anything in there about?
They say eventually
Not that I'm speaking of any one particular kids at home. Let's move on to, before I get myself into big trouble from little people. There was a really weird story that broke this week. And to me, it shows the vanity and the superficiality of our entire culture. Women who are undergoing binge diets, going to losing 20 pounds in 10 days via a feeding tube.
Yes.
They put a feeding tube up a nostril, and they carry this bag around. What have we become where women are eating a liquid diet for 10 days to lose pounds for the wedding gown?
Well, exactly. I was just saying it's popularized among brides or soon-to-be brides because they have this event or this dress they need to get into. It says a lot, not just about the pressure that a lot of girls and women have to be thin, but I also thought, you know, and I wrote about this on CatholicVote.org, that it says something, it's sort of, you know, like the state of marriage. I mean, everybody wants a quick fix. You know, nobody wants to do the hard work. Nobody wants to put in the daily commitment of what it takes. Just like, you know, I dread, all day long, I dread the moment I have to work out, you know. And but, you know, that's the kind of discipline it takes, but everybody wants a quick fix. And the bad part about it is there are side effects. You will have
from the feeding tube.
From the feeding tube, besides being embarrassed
for
among
those
your
of you
coworkers.
considering the feeding tube, God forbid.
So for the brides, it also involves the side effects are bad breath and constipation, which I don't think will bode well for the wedding night. So
how romantic. Well, I'm going to leave the feeding tube discussion right there. We're not going to pick that one up again. You know, but it really is. I mean, you have people focusing on a moment, on a wedding, and forgetting about the marriage that follows. And isn't this the problem we're having?
that is the problem.
You know, it's such a hype. I mean, not Brad Pitt, of course, who took a year just to design the wedding ring, we might add. But we'll leave that aside, too. I want to shift to reality television, something everybody is taking part in. There's an explosion of mommy shows, and they're not good mommy shows. They are stage mother shows, including one is called Momagers, like managers, Momagers, okay? And it is about a bunch of stage mothers forcing their kids into music, sports, dancing, or acting. This is, of course, playing off of Dance Moms, which is this horrific show. Have you seen this show?
Yes. Which is a spin-off of the whole Toddlers
and Tiara show. Yeah. What does this capture and tell us about this moment and about our vision of mothers and child rearing in this country?
Well, I mean, I still view that as sort of freakish. I mean, I don't really know anybody.
Oh, how good of you. How giving of you to view it as freakish. Yeah, I do too. What do you think?
I mean, I saw a Toddlers and Tiaras where there was this poor little girl. She was probably, you know, 5 years old, crying because her mother was spray tanning her. And I'm going, are you kidding? And they all look like, you know, they're 40 years old with their bouffant hair. I think it says, and not so much about, I don't want to come so much on the stage mom part of, you know, pushing kids, but even, again, going back to this image of beauty and the kind of pressure that it puts on kids. And the thing is, my kids asked me not very long ago, can I watch Toddlers and Tiara? All my friends at school are watching Toddlers and Tiara, and of course I'm saying no. But the truth is, their kids are watching it, and you know, parents don't have the kind of supervision of the television that they had before, and so these images, these ideas are now sinking in.
See, I think the whole Facebook thing, giving children, and we'll get into this story in a moment, apps and tablets being designed for kids, all of this is tied in, it seems. I'm going to comment on the kids for a second, because when you have a mother, or the mothers rather, when you have a mother or a father pushing a child into areas that they're really too young to make their own decisions, but the parent is so involved, that's about their personal vanity. That has nothing to do with that child.
That's absolutely right.
And I think we have a whole culture that is just in this narcissistic sludge, whether it's Facebook, you know, here's a picture of Junior in his little suit as he goes out. God bless you, but I don't care to see a picture of your kid. You know, just if it's not it's a bit of news or something relative to my life, we don't need to see you getting a root canal at the dentist or Junior getting a root canal. I just don't see, I think it promotes that kind of superficial, narcissistic mindset that everyone wants to know what I'm doing and thinking. I mean,
I think that you're right, that there's a connection between reality TV and this idea that anybody can be a star. And of course, I'm guilty of being part of the early parts of this
two people in television,
Exactly. But you're right, there is something very narcissistic about Twitter. I'm eating a ham sandwich, or, you know, and posting all these photos, and then it gets into this other stuff of the sexting and everything else that's happening. So yeah, there is something in that.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about this story, this tablets for children, apps being directed toward kids. How do you deal with this? Because pretty soon, children's books, educational games that we played, you know, it's not the old Fisher-Price thing, it's all an app. How do you balance making those resources available to your child while shielding them from much of the dreck that we're talking about?
Well, I'm afraid that some of your viewers may think that I am way too old school, but I don't let my kids do any of that stuff. They don't have video games. They don't have cell phones. My oldest is 12, by the way.
Good.
They don't have cell phones. And the computer is really a place where they write reports on or ask me if they need to look something up for a report. So I am very much against all of this. And part of it is I see myself at home. You know, my husband works in D.C. I'm at home. I like to stay in touch. So they see me texting, and they actually scold me because I'm saying no to technology with them, and yet I'm using it at times and ignoring what's going on because I'm sending a text out. So I have to catch myself. But I'm a grown-up, and I can catch myself, and I have 6 people catching me all the time. Kids, I think, are being left alone with technology, with Facebook, with you know, all kind. The internet is very dangerous, very, very dangerous, and kids are being left alone with it. You know, YouTube videos, and then, you know, they look up one little simple thing, and then there's, you know, 5 suggested videos that are, you know, completely off color and inappropriate.
And we had a guest on last week, Liz Yor, who was saying, if you're worried about predators, you don't have to worry about the playground or the church or the school.
Absolutely.
You have to worry about the mobile device you've given your kid. The biggest predator could be in their backpack. And
I know.
The statistics bear that up.
But I'll tell you that as a parent saying no to technology, I also get a lot of pushback, even from people within my own family going, you know, my own mother, who loves technology, is like, well, you know, your kids don't know how to. So, I mean, you know, there is a balance. I just believe that it's the computer and the technology is something they will inevitably learn to do. I just think right now it takes away from family, and there are serious dangers.
What about the television? How do you police that?
That's hard. You know, I'm a big fan of TiVo because I think if you can TiVo programs, then you have control over what they're actually watching. And then when you can TiVo old shows like the Beverly Hillbillies and the Brady Bunch, so my kids are a little bit retro in that regard. But they're
great wholesome shows. My kids watch Gilligan's Island, and, you know, they love these things.
Little House on the Prairie. They don't make Little House on the Prairie anymore. So TiVo will let you do that, and so will using these video sets that they have for old television shows. So yeah, definitely control it.
Rachel Campos-Duffy, thanks for being here, as always. Come back soon and tell the hubby we said hi. Stay home, stay happy. 10 Secrets to Loving at-Home Motherhood is available at bookstores everywhere and online. For more information on Rachel, her book, columns, media appearances, visit her website, rachelcamposduffy.com. Up next, Mother Dolores Marie of the Poor Clares of Perpetual Adoration joins us to talk about why young women are coming to the religious life and her plans for North Carolina. Finally, some good news. The World Over Live continues in a moment. Stay right there.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over. According to the latest statistics, religious are getting older. 75% of men and 91% of women in U.S. religious communities are over the age of 60. But the same survey by the National Religious Vocations Conference tells us that 43% of new members of religious communities are under the age of 30. The millennial generation. One of the orders attracting younger vocations is the Poor Clares of Perpetual Adoration. And if that sounds familiar, it should be. Mother Angelica is a member of the same order. This branch of the Poor Clares is opening new monasteries all over the country. Here to explain why young women are coming and to tell us about her new monastery near Charlotte, North Carolina, is Mother Dolores Marie, the abbess of St. Joseph's Monastery, and Sister Marie Therese. Welcome to the program.
Thank you,
Glad
Raymond.
you all could be here. Now, Mother Dolores, what are these young women telling you when they call to inquire about religious life and about joining your community in particular?
Well, I think they're looking for an authentic expression of religious life. And so there are certain things that they're seeking when they come to us. And it's faithfulness to the magisterium of the church. It is a life lived out authentically according to the particular charism that they're called to. And they're eager to, I think, give themselves fully to the Lord in whatever way they're being directed by the Holy Spirit.
But Mother, you'll forgive me. People looking in, people reading about this or seeing you all, they say, wait a minute. This is counterintuitive. You're young women. You should be out enjoying your life. You should be out working. You should be out working with the people. Why are young women being called, particularly to a cloistered existence? We should tell people, you are hidden away from the world, adoring the Blessed Sacrament. Why that call?
Well, don't most people want a challenge? You know, that's what, they don't want something watered down. And they want something where they really sacrifice themselves. Why would you want to enter an order where basically you're living the same life you live out in the world? So they're looking for, when they feel that call, they really want to give all. And the cloistered life is a particular call in itself. So you don't have the same numbers entering a cloistered order that you do for active orders. But it's still there. That interest is still there. And for our particular order, it's always because of the Blessed Sacrament. And I want to get into that in a moment for people who might not be familiar with this particular call. Sister Marie-Therese, what brought you to the religious life? What were you looking for? What did you hope to find?
Actually, I grew up around EWTN, so Mother Angelica and the sisters are like part of my family. And I was so drawn to the joy of the sisters, their faithfulness to the teaching of the Church, the Blessed Sacrament being the heart and center of our community in particular. But just the incredible joy, like that just always struck me. It's like, why are they so happy? What is so different about this life? You know, all that they've given up, and they're just incredibly joyful.
Yeah,
So,
it's something to see, and you do see that kind of bouncy, radiant spirit that Mother Angelica have, that both of you possess as well. Tell us about, before we move on, how would you describe your order? Because I know many faithful Catholics, members of my own family, who say, oh, that's lovely, Mother Angelica and the nuns over there praying, that's nice, but why don't they teach kids? Why aren't they out in the world feeding the poor? Why don't they do something useful for society? You would say what?
Well, any document of the Church that you pick up on the cloistered contemplative life talks about the intrinsic value of a life of prayer and adoration. Our life doesn't have boundaries, you know, whereas if you are in an active apostolate, you can only minister to a certain section of people at a certain amount of time. With our life, kneeling before the Lord in the Blessed Sacrament, it radiates throughout the world, and there are no boundaries to it. So it's an effective means, as are the other ways, but it is a particular call. You know?
No, you know, in reading the description of your order, when I was working on the biography of Mother, it talks about adoration in reparation for the world. Now, that's one of those $10 words that people don't understand the meaning of. What does it mean to pray for reparation of others, for the sins of others?
It's reparative thanksgiving, to be specific. So if you think about the world, most people, when they're unhappy, I think it's because they're not thinking of all the things they had to be grateful for, and especially grateful to God. So our order our foundress was very moved by the story of the 10 lepers, where only one came back to give thanks. And she said, okay, there's all kinds of orders out there dedicated to reparation or whatever it may be, but our order is going to be to thank God for all the blessings, for all the things that people neglect to thank Him for. So that probably lends to the joyful attitude of our life, because it is a more positive and thanksgiving.
A life of gratitude. A life of gratitude. And, you know, people have asked me as they've gone up to the monastery, what do they do in there?
What do they do all day?
You know what they do in there? Keep this thing rolling out here. You know, it's the spiritual dynamism that keeps the rest of this going, unseen, unheard from, but nonetheless, it goes on, and it has an important, and in the life of Mother Angelica, you really see not only the witness of that contemplative life, but the ripple effects of that prayer and the sacrifice and pain of one life, yes?
Well, it's so hidden, but it's so powerful. It's like you can touch so many more lives than you ever could in any other way. It's amazing what the power it puts into the heart of the Church.
Now, you both are engaged in a pretty important work now. You are focused on building a new monastery. You were up in Portsmouth, Ohio.
Right.
You're now called to build a monastery in Charlotte, North Carolina,
Right.
just outside of Charlotte. Before we get into the project itself, what of Mother Angelica's example and model have you incorporated into your own life, particularly at this moment, being the great foundress, one of the great foundresses of the church?
Right.
What did you take from her? What are you using now, do you find?
I would say there's a lot of things, because with Mother, if she felt something was God's will, then she wasn't afraid to pursue it. And it really didn't matter what the sufferings were that were involved, what the sacrifices were. But if the Lord, if in prayer she discerned the Lord wanted something, she did it. That would be one example, because it did take a lot of courage for us to take the path that we've taken. Another thing would just be her awareness of God in the present moment, and that joyful spirit that you talk about. She always delighted in the things of God. So
Tell me, why North Carolina? Why Charlotte?
it is a vibrant, growing diocese. We saw the love there for our Lord and the Blessed Sacrament. The Bishop Jugas, has instituted an annual Eucharistic Congress that grows every year. There are a lot of young priests who are just full of love for their vocation, and that's where you're going to get vocations. It's where they love where the priests love their vocation, and where they love the Blessed Sacrament.
And tell me what the plan is. This is, you found a bit of property, right?
A bit.
Tell me about the bit of property and what the plan is.
Okay, we did. We found a large parcel of property, and we ended up buying it in conjunction with the Te Deum Foundation, and they bought one portion of it, and we bought the other, with their goal being in the future to build a seminary. And then ours will be the spiritual support for that seminary. So that's, right now, theirs takes a little more discernment before it moves on in, different stages, whereas we're there to support, of course, the diocese, the priests, all the laity, and like I said, further. But we can go on with our building and plans at this time, and as the Lord permits.
Tell me, how did you find this spot? There's an interesting story there, and then we're going to show a little bit of a trailer that you all have built to kind of propagate the plan here.
Yeah. I always wondered, because we were looking in land in Ohio, and then looking again when we came to North Carolina, and we always kind of joked around about it, because with Mother, she would either see the infant Jesus, or she would see Saint Michael. And I thought, okay, Lord, you're probably not going to do that for me. I'm probably not going to see St. Michael, probably not going to see the baby running along the fence. But how are we going to know where you want us to build? And so this day that we went out to look at this particular piece of land, we were looking at probably 5 pieces that day. And as we got to a certain spot on the land, something caught our eye. And it was a outcropping of white rock in the middle of the woods of pine forest, but the sun was coming through the trees just enough to brighten it and draw our attention to it. When we got out there, the priest that was with us held up his phone to take a picture of the rocks, but when he held it up, a perfect luminous cross showed up in the viewfinder of it, and we both caught our breaths because we couldn't see it. And it was on 2 different levels, one up high, one low. And the light was coming through just...
And they were branches that were coming across.
But not touching. You couldn't really pick it up with your eye.
No, it was the angle that he was at that it appeared to be across there. Yeah.
And just lighting up enough to make a perfect cross. And I didn't think that much about it at that time, but later we realized it was the feast of St. Helena, and that Constantine was told, by this sign you shall conquer. A luminous cross is what he was shown. And we thought, okay, this probably means something, we should look into this a little bit more.
Interesting. I want to show people a trailer. This is a little trailer the sisters have assembled, and you'll see a shot in this trailer of that luminous cross. Take a look. Sister Marie, how many nuns are there now who are joining this effort?
There are 5 of us currently in Charlotte, and then we have so many young women who are interested. We've met a lot of young girls since coming, and it seems like once we have a whole crop of 10-year-old girls who are dying to enter, so we might have a boom in a few
A little
years.
early, though I have a daughter who's 6, and you know, at this point, looking at what's happening in the culture, the habit wouldn't be a bad option for her mother. But
Never know.
I'll contact you in time. Why do the people of Charlotte need a contemplative house there, a monastery of contemplatives?
Well, it is the first of its kind in that area, and they're very grateful for it. They have a keen awareness of the power of prayer, and the bishop himself has just been extraordinarily supportive of it. I think he sees the deep value of it because it is, like you said before, kind of like the fuel that helps everyone to keep going in the world.
Well, Mother Dolores, Sister Marie Therese, thank you both for being with us, and we wish you the best, certainly, in all your endeavors and with the monastery. And you can learn more at www.stjosephmonastery.com. Now, it's just St. Joseph Monastery, all one word, .com. You can learn much more there, and thank you again. When we return, an encore presentation of my interview with House Budget Committee Chairman Congressman Paul Ryan of Wisconsin, and what people, including bishops, are saying about his plan. The World Over returns in a moment. Stay right there.